David here with Figboot on Pens. Today I have for you something you probably haven't seen before. Now, I've teased it a bit during a few writing samples here on my channel, but outside of that, my guess is this will be a new brand and a new pen for you. The company is called Penlux, and the pen is called the Metallic. What I'm going to do today is go over the parts and features of the Penlux Metallic, talk about what I care for and what I don't care for. I'll show some measurements, size comparisons, and provide a writing sample. Penlux is based out of Taiwan and has been creating private label projects for over 15 years, and they recently decided to create some pens under their own brand. Where I discovered this brand was at the DC show this past year. It was getting late on the last day of the show, and I was making my way around the room to say goodbye to friends, and I came across the table. I'm not quite sure why I hadn't noticed their table on the first 2 days of the show, but I did, basically as I was walking out the door. They were nice enough to provide me with this pen for review, so for that, I'm grateful. So, let's take a look at it, shall we? The pen arrives in this box. The outer sleeve slides off, and inside we have kind of a basic black box, which opens up, and there we have the pen. The Penlux Metallic. When this pen was introduced at the DC show this past year, it was originally called the Metallica. To avoid confusion with the American heavy metal band with the same name, they shortened the name of the pen to the Metallic, which is probably a good idea. You don't want to get on Lars' bad side. Retro 51 recently came out with the Kiss rollerballs, so maybe Metallica needs to come up with one of their own and maybe one-up them and come out with a fountain pen. They could call it the One. It wouldn't have a cap or a clip. It would just have like a little white mask that covered the nib, so you could never see the nib because it was horribly disfigured. So there you go. You probably never thought you'd hear Metallica humor in a fountain pen review, but that's what I got. The Metallic, is made from an aluminum alloy and is available in 3 colors, a black, a red, and then this gray, which is kind of a gunmetal gray. It has a bit of a matte finish to it. It feels very cool to the touch. I do like the feel of this pen, even when I'm not using it. Let's start by taking a look at the end of the cap. On the end, it has the Penlux logo in a plastic inlay. The P logo, at first glance, I thought it looked a lot like the Platinum Pen Company logo to me. But then when I compared them side by side, there's a significant difference between the two. Next, encircling the edge of the cap are some metal grooves. I like these grooves. It's a unique look. Then we have the clip. It's black and metal, and on it, Penlux is laser etched. The clip isn't flashy, but it's functional, and I feel its slick profile fits in well with the overall look of the pen. It's a rather steep fall off to the ink window. While the pen is capped, you can see about 2/3 of the ink window. I just have a darker ink in here right now. This pen is inked. I do like that you can see it while the pen is capped. The barrel is straight until you get to the very end here where we have a piston knob. The Metallic is a piston filler, and on the end of the piston knob there are these metal grooves, which are a bit longer than the grooves you find at the end of the cap. They do help provide a really good grip when operating this piston, and I appreciate that. When I'm cleaning out my pens, sometimes my hands are wet and it can be tough to get a good grip on a piston knob, and so for this knob, it's not an issue. The piston knob actually angles down just slightly, and then on the end of the knob it's rounded and has a little bump at the top. I'm not quite sure what the reasoning is for that little bump in the design. I don't think it's anything to do with manufacturing, but I'm not sure. I really couldn't think of a purpose that would have. As I mentioned previously, this is a piston filler, and I do like that there is a ratcheting safety system in place to prevent you from over-twisting the knob. Once it is fully retracted and all inked up, you know you can stop twisting because you hear this noise. It's a nice design. I wish more pistons actually had them. The cap twists off to reveal this number 6 Schmidt Steel Nib. I believe the Metallic is only available in fine right now. I find this Schmidt fine to write a bit on the sharp side. It's not the smoothest nib, but it's decent. And then here's a look at the plastic feed. There's a couple of things going on with the section here. First of all, the threads for the cap are here at the end of the section, which isn't too common. And as I said many times previously, I have a tendency to grip my pen close to the end of the section. And in this case, doing so is a little bit uncomfortable because you're gripping directly on the metal threads. While the threads aren't especially sharp, they aren't necessarily comfortable. And so for this particular pen, I have to move my grip back just a little bit, which leads to the second issue with this section. It's tough to see here, but the section is very slightly angled down from the end of the section toward the barrel. I don't find the matte finish on this section to be that slippery, but the slight angle down kind of tends to cause my grip to gravitate backward until you fall off the ledge, so to speak, and into the ink window trough. I do like this ink window. I feel it adds to the look of the pen as opposed to looking like just a chunk was removed from it. The cap will not post. It fits on the end of the barrel, but it won't progress past the piston grooves. This cap is a bit heavy. It's only 3 grams lighter than the rest of the pen, so even if it did post, I would figure that would throw off the balance of the pen a bit. At this time, I believe the only place that you can purchase the Penlux Metallic is the site ItalianPens.com. I'll put a link to it in the notes below. Penlux has another model they offer, which is available on that site, and I've seen it on Bertram's Inkwell as well. The metallic retails for $140, which I personally feel is a bit on the high side in regard to the value cost for this pen. I do like a lot of the elements of the metallic. I like the look and the feel. That I've used this pen quite a bit over the last couple of months, and it's always performed well. The only things that really bug me about the pen are the threads at the end of the section and my experience with my grip kind of traveling backward a bit. And those two things are potentially stuff that will only affect me. You might have a different experience depending on how you hold your pen. So I feel that the metallic is an interesting addition to the marketplace. So thanks again. Go out to Penlux for providing this pen for review. Now it's time for some measurements, size comparisons, and a writing sample. Here we go with some size comparisons for the Penlux Metallic. Here it is with a TWSBI Diamond 580 in red. Then here it is with a Lamy Safari in the petrol. And then here it is with a Faber-Castell Loom. Then in regard to some other pens, here it is with a Diplomat Aero, a Visconti Mirage, and then a Lamy 2000. So here we go with the Penlux Metallic. This is a fine steel nib, and the ink that I'm using today is from a relatively new company to the States, which is called 3 Oysters. And the name of this ink is Haneul. I'm just guessing on that. Haneul. And this is what the bottle looks like. That I'll probably be doing a review of this shortly. I don't know, they sent me a number of inks. I don't know if I'm going to review this one or one of their other ones, but I will be doing a look for a review of 3 Oyster inks coming out relatively soon. This is what this particular ink looks like. It's kind of a nice turquoise blue. It looks somewhat similar to like Visconti turquoise, or maybe even something like the Lamy Pacific Blue. It's kind of all in that same type of family. So here we go with the rest of the writing sample. I did mention this in the review, but I do find that this Schmidt Steel Nib writes a little bit on the sharp side. It's not necessarily super smooth. You can get a little line variation out of here. I mean, with a fine nib, you're not going to get tons, especially if it's a steel nib. But as someone who doesn't have a lot of fines in my collection, I think this is something that you'll probably see a lot of in writing samples and things like that, because I think it lays down a decent fine line. In regard to wetness, I really haven't had any flow issues with this pen. And in regard to some reverse writing, it worked just fine. And then in regard to some fast writing, there you go. There's no issues whatsoever. And when I say sharp, I don't necessarily mean scratchy. It's just like very precise, almost like needle point-ish like, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. It's not like the nib isn't smooth or smoothed out or polished or anything like that. So there you have the Penlux Metallic, which I think is an interesting introduction to the marketplace and an interesting new pen. So until next time, thanks for watching. I'll talk to you later.